Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Vietnam Stock Market Opportunities. It's an honor to be with you today. And if you want to open a legal trading account, please contact us with the email Vietnamstockmarket.entry@gmail.com. Telegram Vietnamstockmarket.entry with the phone number is +8491 432 6556. Or you can also scan the two QR codes on the screen so that we can support you. And the other way to contact with us is please follow and subscribe the channel name Areca Capital Channel. The owner of this YouTube channel is Areca Hồng Nguyen. She is a personal financial advisor. You can contact her with the email hồng.nguyen@vcc.com.vn. You can contact her with the phone number is +8491 432 6556. We always welcome you to our office on the 11th floor, 109 Trường Đại Street, Hoàng Kiếm District, Hà Nội, Vietnam. And today we would like to update you about Vietnam macro thought piece. In December 2022, China's reopening to partly cushion the negative impact of global slowdown on Vietnam's economy. China announced major steps towards reopening. On the 26th December, China announced that the country will drop quarantine requirements for all inbound travelers and will remove restrictions on numbers of international flights and passenger capacity, effective from the 8th January 2023. Previously, on the 7th December, China released a set of 10 measures to lift COVID-19 restrictions. China's recovery to partly mitigate the negative impact of the slowdown in the US and other economies on Vietnam. China is Vietnam's second largest export market, contributing 15.7% of Vietnam's exports in 2022 after the US 29.3% of total exports. We expect China's reopening will boost demand in China and lift Vietnam exports to China, thus partly mitigating the negative impact on Vietnam of weaker growth in other economies, especially the US. We estimate a 1.9 ppts increase in Vietnam's exports growth to China would offset a 1 ppts decrease in export growth to the US. Vietnam's top export products to China include phones and cameras, PCs and electronics, food and agricultural products, and textiles, garments, and footwear. However, given current global economic conditions, we expect demand for staples, foods like food and agricultural products could gain more benefits from China's reopening in other categories. China's reopening to reduce the cost of supply chain disruption. China is the largest source of Vietnam imports, accounting for more than 30% of the country's imports. The reopening of China's economy should help to reduce the risk of shortages of input materials sourced from China due to disrupted production. Also, we expect China's reopening will have to remove disruptions in supply chains, thus reducing the effective cost of imports via reducing delivery times and logistics and storage costs. Brighter outlook for the tourism sector. Chinese visitors were the largest source of international arrivals pre-pandemic, with nearly 6 million Chinese visitors in 2019, equivalent to more than 30% of total international arrivals. Tourism export revenues hit $11.8 billion, 3.6% of nominal GDP in 2019 before plunging to only 149 million US dollars in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Although international arrivals have partly recovered to 3.7 million and tourism exports rebounded to 3.8 billion US dollars, around 1% of GDP in 2022. These figures are still far below the pre-pandemic levels due to the absence of Chinese travelers. The return of Chinese visitors should have to brighten the outlook for the tourism sector, as well as overall consumption and retail sales. We currently expect Chinese arrivals in Vietnam will fully recover to the pre-pandemic level in H2 2023. We believe China's reopening will not reduce Vietnam's attractiveness for FDI as one, multinational companies continue to diversify production locations to reduce supply chains concentration risk in China. Two, trade tensions between the US and China, especially in the tech sector, are ongoing. And three, Vietnam continues to prove itself as one of the most attractive investment destinations, thanks to the country's fundamental advantages, include geographic location, large young population, low labor cost, and a long list of free trade agreements. China's reopening. China announced major step towards reopening. On the 7th December, China released a set of 10 measures to lift COVID-19 restrictions. Notably, China decided to abandon its health code system, which tracks individuals' health status. Mandatory centralized quarantine, compulsory testing, and sweeping lockdowns. On the 26th December, China announced that the country will drop quarantine requirements for all inbound travelers and will remove restrictions on numbers of international flights and passenger capacity effective from the 8th January 2023. Trade. China's recovery should partly mitigate the negative impact caused by the slowdown in the US and other economies on Vietnam. China is Vietnam's second largest export market, contributing around 15.7% of Vietnam's exports in 2022 after the US, which accounted for 29.3% of Vietnam's exports. In 2022, Vietnam's exports to China reached 58.4 billion US dollars, growing by only 4.5% year-over-year, compared to a double-digit growth rate of 14.4% in 2021. Nevertheless, Vietnam's exports to China have improved since Shanghai and other provinces started to ease lockdowns in June. Average monthly exports to China reached 5.7 billion US dollars during August to December, a jump of 35.4% from an average of 4.2 billion US dollars during April to July. Although this growth was partly due to seasonal factors. Let's see on the screen, this is the Figure 1, Vietnam-China bilateral trade. Figure 2, Vietnam's exports by market in 2022. Figure 3, 4, and 5. We expect China's reopening will boost demand and lift Vietnam's exports to China, thus partly mitigating the negative impact caused by weaker growth in other economies, especially the US on Vietnam. According to the Bloomberg consensus forecast, China's GDP growth could increase to 4.9% in 2023 compared to 3% in 2022, in contrast to expectations for growth in the US economy to slow from 1.9% in 2022 to just 0.3% in 2023. We estimate a 1.9 ppts increase in Vietnam's export growth to China would offset a 1 ppts decrease in export growth to the US. In 11 months 2022, Vietnam's top export categories to China included phones and cameras, $18.5 billion, accounting for 35.2% of Vietnam's exports to China. PCs and electronics, $10.7 billion, accounting for 20.3%. Foods and agricultural products, $5.4 billion, accounting for 10.3%. Textiles, garments, and footwear, $5 billion, accounting for 9.5%. And rubber, wood, and paper products, $4.4 billion, accounting for 8.4%. Given current global economic conditions, we expect stable goods like food and agricultural products could gain more benefits from China's reopening compared to other categories. Key food and agricultural product exports to China in 11 months 2022 included fishery products, $1.5 billion, contributing 27% of exports of this category to China. Fruits and vegetables, $1.4 billion, accounting for 25%. And manioc products, $1.1 billion, accounting for 21%. We expect exports of food and agricultural products will benefit not only from improving demand from China, but potentially also from faster customs clearance producers. Figure 6, Vietnam's exports to China by product groups. Figure 7, Vietnam's key exports by market in 2021. China is reopening to reduce the cost of supply chain disruption. China is the largest source of Vietnam's imports, accounting for more than 30% of the country's imports. In 2022, Vietnam's imports from China reached $119.3 billion, increasing 7.9% year-over-year compared to a robust growth rate of 31.3% in 2021. As 96% of Vietnam's imports were input materials for production, China's reopening should help to reduce risks of shortage of materials due to disrupted production. Vietnam's key imports from China include machinery and equipment, PCs and electronics, and textiles and garments. Also, we expect China's reopening will help to reduce disruption in supply chains and lower import costs via reducing delivery times and logistics and storage costs. Figure 8, Vietnam's key imports from China. Figure 9, Vietnam's key imports by markets. Figure 10, Vietnam, China, annual trade balance. Figure 11, Vietnam, China, trade balance by category. Tourism brighter outlook for the tourism sector from the return of Chinese visitors. China was the largest source of international tourists in Vietnam pre-pandemic. According, according to the General Statistics Office of Vietnam in 2019, Vietnam welcomed nearly 6 million Chinese visitors, which was equivalent to more than 30% of Vietnam's international arrivals. However, due to COVID-19 restrictions, Chinese visitors fell to less than 1 million arrivals in 2020, 58,000 in 2021, and 125,000 in 2021. Also, Vietnam's tourism export revenues hit 11.8 billion US dollar, 3.6% of nominal GDP in 2019 before plunging to only 149 million US dollar in 2020 to the COVID-19 pandemic. Although international arrivals partly recovered to 3.7 million in 2022, and tourism exports rebounded to 3.8 billion US dollar, around 1% of GDP, these figures are still far below the pre-pandemic level due to the absence of Chinese travelers. Chinese only accounted for only 3.4% of total international arrivals in 2022. The return of Chinese visitors should help to brighten the outlook for the tourism sectors as well as overall consumption and retail sales. We currently expect Chinese arrivals in Vietnam will fully recover to the pre-pandemic level in H2 2023. Figure 12, international arrivals from China. Figure 13, international arrivals by country region in 2019. Foreign direct investment. China's reopening will not reduce Vietnam's attractiveness for FDI. We believe China's reopening will not reduce Vietnam's attractiveness for FDI relative to China for the following reasons. Multinational companies could continue to diversify their production locations to reduce concentration risks in China's supply chain. Trade tension between the US and China, especially in the tech sector, are ongoing. Vietnam has continued to prove itself as one of the most attractive investment destinations due to the country's fundamental advantages, including geographic location, large young population, low labor cost, and long list of free trade agreements. Figure 14. Registered FDI from China to Vietnam. Figure 15. Registered FDI by country region in 2022. And that brings me to the end of my presentation about Vietnam macro stock piece. If you want to open a legal trading account, don't hesitate to contact with us with the information on the screen so that we can assist you. Thank you for your listening and see you next time. Bye.